Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of Pasco City Council this evening of October 21st, 2019. We have agendas available on the corner desk where the sign actually now says agendas. And we also have a more detailed council packet available electronically through the city's website. We also televise our meetings live on Charter Cable, as well as through the city's website and also Facebook Live. Those are, of course, available for review later on. And if you have any cell phones, I'd ask you to mute those so that the meeting isn't interrupted. And if you get a chance to speak with council this evening, if you come up to the podium and share your name with us, we'd be thankful for record keeping. With housekeeping taken care of, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Alvarado.
Present.
Barajas.
Present.
Maloney.
Present.
Martinez.
Present.
Milne.
Present.
Serrano.
Here.
And Watkins.
Here. And with all seven of us here, if you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Third item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We consider these items to be routine. I'll do it as a single roll call vote unless a council member or a member of the public wants an item considered separately. Those items include the approval of minutes from the October 7th meeting, bills and communications to approve claims in the total amount of $5,478,105.43, as well as to approve bad debt write-offs for utility billing, ambulance, and other accounts in the amount of $204,584.43, but with a portion of that, $115,633.25 to be turned over for collections. Anything to be removed? Hearing none, Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Martinez. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alvarado.
Yes.
Barajas.
Yes.
Maloney.
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Milne.
Yes.
Serrano.
Yes.
Watkins.
Yes. With that, motion carries unanimously, and we are done with section 3 on the agenda. We go to 4, proclamations and acknowledgements, and we do have one this evening related to a compliance award awarded, I believe, for Department of Ecology. Introductory comments, Mr. Worley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tonight we have two staff members from the Department of Ecology, and they are here tonight to present to us, to our wastewater treatment plant staff, an award for perfect compliance. I think they'll give you more information. So with that, I'd like to introduce from Ecology, Adrian Borges? Borges. And Diana Washington in the back. And so would like to turn it over to them and have them explain what the award is for.
Good to see you this evening, Ms. Borges, and if Ms. Washington wants to come up as well, or you can also from back there, we see that you're moving there a little slow there. Good to see you.
Good evening. Thank you. Mayor Watkins, Mayor Maloney, council members, city manager, and the other important people that run the city. I'm here tonight to congratulate the Pasco Wastewater Treatment Plant for its award for outstanding performance. The award I have tonight is especially important because it represents 5 years of full compliance with its wastewater discharge permit. My staff evaluated the wastewater treatment plant for its compliance with its effluent limits, monitoring and reporting requirements, spill prevention planning, pre-treatment, and overall operational demands of the permit. Your excellent record is a credit to the dedicated operators who are responsible for running this award-winning plant, and I'd like to call out that operating the collection system and lift stations are especially important to your success. It takes diligent operators and a strong management team working together to achieve this high level of compliance, and it's not easy to operate a wastewater treatment plant 24 hours a day, 365 days a year without any violations. We appreciate the extraordinary level of effort that your operators have demonstrated throughout 2018 and the previous 4 years as well. And your talented and proficient operators are critical to the success of plant operations and protecting our waters. So I'd like to ask them to come up and introduce themselves while I give them the award.
That would be great. Could we have all of the staff related to operations wastewater treatment plant come up, please, and
Oh,
introduce
that's a great
yourselves and
turnout.
share with council and the public your name and what you do for the city at the wastewater treatment plant.
Oh, welcome. I'm Todd Martin. I'm the Chief Wastewater Plant Operator for the City of Pasco. Been there for 16 years. Thank you guys for allowing us to do what we do. So,
Hi, I'm Travis Newman. I'm a Group 2 operator there at the plant. I've been there for 4 years and help with the day-to-day stuff and some of the maintenance, and have recently taken over the work order program and getting that going. Thank you.
Brett Cristiano, 24 years this month with the wastewater plant. I'm an operator, but my primary function is maintaining the equipment, keeping it running. And I have to say, appreciate your support financially to allow us to do that. Without the finances, it would be difficult to keep the equipment in the condition that we have it in.
Good evening. I'm Rodney Mary. I've been an operator for 23 years. Operator Group 3, and just enjoyed being at the City of Pasco and being an operator.
Hi, Brian Musso. I'm a level 2 operator. I've been with the city for almost 6 years now, and it's just a pleasure working with this great group of guys.
Heath Bateman, Division Manager for the treatment plants, and I've been with the city for 13 years. And I really can't say enough about these guys. They truly do enjoy their job and take it to heart, and really do a phenomenal job. So.
And Heath, before you leave, could you describe what you did before you became a plants manager?
So for the previous 11 and a half years, I operated the laboratory for the treatment plant. So.
And I would imagine too that there might be some folks that are not able to make it this evening because there's still a plant to be run.
That is correct.
And I would just note too, and before I give it back to you, that thanking us, yes, council approves funds, but we also, the thanks goes the other direction. I think we know that properly funding your wastewater treatment program pays dividends to make sure that you have an efficient system. So thank you all for demonstrating and providing us information so that we can make, that becomes an easy decision for us. And I see a couple nods, so I think that's probably carried by most council members too. And you have a specific award.
I have a plaque. It's a special recognition award, 5 consecutive years of outstanding performance, 2014 through 2018. Washington State Department of Ecology recognizes the exemplary effort and work accomplished by the City of Pasco and the dedicated team at the Pasco Wastewater Treatment Plant. Thank you for protecting and keeping Washington waters clean. So at this point, I'd like to indulge in a quick photo op here.
Absolutely.
The council behind you?
Sure. Do you want, if you want, well, we're going to do a round of applause first, right? Just right now. Okay. And if you want, why don't you come up here, and if council members want to move in. No, you want to. Hey, good to see you. How are you doing? And will that end up working for a photo? Okay. One more round of applause here, I think. Absolutely. Mr. Martinez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want, I would like for you guys to know, and quite honestly, I knew this was coming, but I was at an elementary school giving a little speech on what it takes to help grow a city and all the things that the city council provides for a city. And one of the things I was really proud to say was that the city of Pasco has been awarded for having not only the best drinking water, but that we that we treat our water so well that we can put it back into the river and people can swim there and even drink it after they treat it. And I just want you to know that it's really means a lot to be able to sit up here and be a representative of a community and say those things. And it's because of people like you that do. I don't do the work. You guys do the work. And yes, we may support you, but we know the importance of what you do for all the citizens. And I just want to tell you that, you know, without water, there's no life. And I think everybody can agree to that. And you guys make that a reality. So thank you very much for everything you do.
And also shout out to our friends at Department of Ecology too, recognizing communities are going up that step or above and beyond. We really do appreciate that, and it makes us eager to work with Department of Ecology for your mission as well. So we're all on the same page there. We appreciate coming out tonight to recognize Pasco. We thank you for that. Thank you. With that, we've done the proclamations and acknowledgements. We go on to section 5 on the agenda, visitors other than agenda items. Anybody here want to speak on an item that's not further along on the agenda? Mr. Cheney.
Let's come up to the microphone.
Yes.
Good evening, City of Pasco government and the city manager. Hey, Dave, it's good to see you. Thank you to say hi early before you get away. I have a gift for all of you, but before I get to the gift, I just want to cordially invite all of you to our Pasco Day of Hope and the Community Hope Wall unveiling at Vinnie's Bakery. It's going to be on November 2nd at 11 a.m. to 2. If you haven't heard, we're going to have vendors that represent the whole entire Tri-Cities and Pasco community. And what I think would be a snapshot of today's America. We'll have the Islamic Center is going to be present, Juneteenth City Council, Operation Red Eye, Planned Parenthood. We're going to have face painting and photo booth and Pan Dulce, Vinnie's making hope cookies. It's going to be a celebration of life and hope. And one of the things that is motivating this day are the youth that I work with in the Juvenile Justice Center. You know, a lot of the kids come from the community and they come from rougher backgrounds like myself, my brother as well. And what we do inside the Juvenile Justice Center is try to make real connections with people who come from different backgrounds that can share some kind of message with our youth, and vice versa. The youth share their stories and their voice with the community with the goal of making a social change. We're using this program to exact social change here. And as a result of it, we have a lot of gifts. One of the projects we worked on throughout the years is this book here called Keep Your Head Up. And it's just a collection of poems and stories and essays by all the juvenile justice incarcerated youth that I've worked with for the last 10 years. You guys all get a copy for free, and everybody who comes to Day of Hope will get a free copy. Well, the first 100 people will get a copy for themselves as well. We wanted to come tonight, well, me and my crew here with me, to ask the city of Pasco to deem this as some kind of holiday. We want to call it a Pasco Day of Hope, and I want to know what the process would be to recognize it as such. And the intention, the mission behind the Pasco Day of Hope is simply a holiday that aims to raise awareness of community needs, promotes compassion for and value of all people, and to uplift youth voices and to teach our children to have hope. The reason for that is, I mean, it's kind of a broad and vague mission in a sense, but to give you an example, I've invited to this Day of Hope one of my community so-called rivals, Bob Parks. I've invited Bob Parks to this event. I also reached out to Sharon Brown and General Mattis this morning. And the reason for that is Sharon Brown is the first person to reach out and text me after I had a crisis last year. And that spoke to me beyond my own personal beliefs, beyond my my community beliefs, the boxed in feeling I had that made me feel so safe and protected, made me feel hopeless. You know, I had to break out of that. And as a result, not only have I gotten healthier, but everybody seems to be getting healthier around me with a different kind of philosophy, these forces that might bring us together, love, hope, compassion, and forgiveness, and how these voices and ideas might be getting muddled in our news cycle, in our Facebook cycles, and our neighbors seem to be growing colder shoulders in these times. And I want this day, and the Team Hope wants this day to be something that brings people back together so that we might be able to create and build a world that we all feel represents who we truly are as a country and as a community. And If you guys have ideas on how we might be able to make this day even more special, besides the artwork that's going on, besides the community ofrenda that we're putting up, besides all the representation that will be there, we just ask that you stamp it in some way so that it lasts and it sustains, a message that sustains despite what we are going through.
And usually we don't answer specific questions, but on this one is a pretty easy one. And I think what we can do is a proclamation, and I'll work with you to get some language. And we might not be able to get it before the November 2nd date.
That's okay.
On an agenda to do, but I can do it as a mayor and would be glad to do it. And I'm sure council would be supportive of that sort of thing. And so we'll make sure and be able to bring that and offer that up on the November 2nd day of celebration.
Wow. I appreciate that. I'm very humbled and thankful. And now you can have the books.
Well, and before you go, though, I think there's might be some participation. Mr. Serrano has an observation.
I would just offer one observation. Obviously, it's late in the game for this, but I would love to see the Inclusivity Commission
absolutely.
brought into this process. One of the things that we had specifically tasked them to is to find events like this so that they could get behind it and obviously then bring it to us. But I would love to see them involved as well.
Well, one of the first...
And obviously, you mentioned Operation Red Eye, and Jesse Campos is a commissioner and heavily involved in that. But it'd be great to see our boards utilized as well. So just one thought.
No,
so
that is what we're looking for. So we have no marketing dollars for this. Blanche has been handling the booth, whoever registers for a booth. We'd love to have the Inclusivity Commission. That is definitely, we want to invite the Inclusivity.
And we'll work with you to make sure and get to be able for you to get an invite and connect with those members as well.
That'd be great.
It'd be easy to do before the November 2nd date as well.
That'd be really great. And I thank you guys for your time. And the whole entire community is invited, and get there early. It's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. So the mayor's going to speak.
And it's still not done yet. You've elicited a fair number of red lights. So at the very least, Ms. Barajas has a comment too.
Oh, sure.
I just wanted to add that the Health and Wellness Fair, along with the revelation of the mural, we did reach out to the Inclusivity Commission and several other organizations. We have a list of about 25 organizations that are participating. And Jordan mentioned a little bit about some of the organizations that are there already. We wanted to invite anyone and everyone to share their resources. And just to invite everyone to be there, we are bringing in food from all regions. So we have Puerto Rican food, we have Mexican food, we're going to have coffee, we're going to have a lot of stuff, so you're all invited to come and join us.
Yeah, we're going to have tamales.
Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. And
get everybody out.
I just want to say, since there's food, I will be there. But I also want to say that I know you're an inspiration to a lot of people. You're an inspiration to a lot of people from the school district. I know how active you are in helping out the youth and the young people. I just want to say thank you, and we're privileged to have you part of our community.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And that means a lot to me, because a lot of people, and I understood the resistance, because Pasco means a lot to me. It's where, we came when I was in first grade. Mrs. Gonzalez, my first grade teacher, helped me. But my little nieces and nephew just live 3 blocks this way. My mom lives this way. This area has a lot of sacred value to me, and I want to see that just continue to prosper. Our town is becoming a beautiful destination place, and it's just starting to ripen, and it's going to be great to see what it becomes tomorrow. So,
Mr. Milne.
Yeah, I look forward to being there as well. I did want to say, if you needed extra parking, my store, the Milne Nail Parts Repair, is just down the street, and you're more than welcome to have people use that parking lot. I could let my staff know if you needed to.
I appreciate it. If we get that much overflow, it might be out of my hands. If you have a helicopter, I can borrow that and
just throwing it out there.
And they say if you repeat it multiple times, it is November 2nd.
November 2nd, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. 11 a.m. there will be the resource fair and a youth art gallery. All the kids incarcerated, we've painted these 5-foot murals, and they're going to be on display inside of Vinny's Bakery. And we're going to have a community ofrenda where people are able to either bring a photo or put a handprint up of somebody that they've lost or have grieved, because I really do appreciate the way the Mexican culture grieves loss, and I think it's very healthy, and it's a great example for all of us who may have not had that tradition as well. It just so happened to fall on
Saturday, Vinnie's Bakery, 10th and Lewis.
Yep, and it'll be in the Pasco booth parking lot, the school district parking lot.
Okay.
All right.
With that, no more lights on, so that'd be a
Yeah.
good chance if you got some books. And these books, because they are gifts, but they're small denomination, and they're not worth over $25. Right?
Yeah, they're and we're not even asking for donations. It's just more of a gift. And there's the TriCityHill.com has a reader version that people can check out for free as well. So,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. And I approach that.
Sure, absolutely. Pass them down. And I mentioned the $25 thing because we as elected officials can't take gifts, but small items are okay, so I'm just clarifying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And did I give you any? Oh,
I already have one for my mother, so we're good on there. Thank you very much. Let's see.
we have a bunch of. And there's one for everybody. You just have to come.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Good to see you. And other visitors this evening, you want to talk about anything else, this would be your opportunity. And not seeing any other hands raised, we're going to go on the agenda. We go to, next item, we go to section 6, reports from committees or officers, council members. Anybody attend an event they wish to share? Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just real quickly want to say that several of us attended the welcoming reception for the new executive director for the Pasco Downtown Development Association. His name is Mr. Gutierrez Gomez, and I'm sure he's going to introduce himself here in the near future. But he comes from Woodburn, Oregon, with a lot of ideas and excitement, and he had a very warm, welcoming reception, and just excited to see the things that are going to happen and the things that are already happening. I was introduced to a lot of new foods. There you go again. And I tell you what, I went home very full that night. And the specialty kitchen and the things going on in there, phenomenal. So anyway, I just want to say congratulations to Mr. Gutierrez and looking forward to his work here at the Pasco Downtown Development Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just Googling where Woodburn was.
I-5 just near Salem.
Found it. I did wanted to report. It's amazing having Google Earth here. No, I wanted to report that I attended Good Roads Association meeting last week. So for Benton, Franklin, and Walla Walla. And I was named president for the following year, so I'll be representing Pasco in that board as the chair for next year as well. And then we did have Representative Matt Binky visit with us, and so it was really great to just see what he's learned in his first year in office for representing us in the state, the 8th district. And so it's great to just be able to bring folks like that so that they can see. Not just the local elected officials, or state elected officials, but also folks that may be on transportation committees, for them to be able to come and see our projects. They've come last year. They came and they took a bus and went underneath Lewis Street overpass, and it's just being able to see the needs of our region. It's just so the organization is really working to work with our legislators for them to have a little more exposure. So just wanted to report that.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the privilege of talking to a class of political science students over at WSU Tri-Cities on Friday, and one of the requirements that the teachers put in place was that each of the students has to go to a community meeting of some sort, be a council meeting. And it turns out 2 of them had actually attended the, I think, previous days or several days before planning commission meeting for the city of Pasco, and had some really interesting questions about that and that process. So it was great to see that we have students, mostly Running Start students for this class, who are engaged and trying to understand. Okay, here's how I engage. Here's what political engagement matters and means. So I was very excited to have an opportunity to speak with them. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. On Tuesday, I did attend the Hispanic Chamber Lunch, which was always really good. And then on Thursday, I did attend our DPDA meeting, in which they were in the black. So it was good that they seemed to be doing well, and also that our city manager was there. He gave a report on the different things with the Lewis Street overpass, kind of gave everybody a time frame of what was happening. And I thought it was a good meeting. And then, of course, with the new executive director, we got to different council got to talk to him as well. So it was a good week in Pasco.
Thank you, Mr. Milling. And just so people know, oftentimes we don't enumerate everything we go to. I think we do our best to kind of highlight the things that would be of interest to other council members, interest to the individual council member, or maybe the public. So, and then also there tends to be a little overlap. So we don't treat it as a check. We went to all of these sort of things. That said, a couple of them that I went to, just note that just before we had a meeting with the would have been the Law Enforcement Firefighters Pension Board. We had been without a fifth member for quite a while. We got a fifth member tonight that was chosen by that committee, so that was good. And then also I want to report last Thursday, besides the downtown one, I actually went to there was a open house or panel presentation by the American Civil Liberties Union, and I volunteered to attend and actually enjoyed that. And that was, the subject was about when the previous council got sued years ago, and actually it was nice to be able to visit that group, and then I even got asked a couple questions and helped to give some perspective on Pasco's change over the past few years. Excellent session. It was nice to hear from Ms. Glatt, also Leo Perales from Kennewick, and then an ACLU member. I know Mr. Maloney was there as well, along with other Pasco residents, and was, for me personally, it was a little bit of closure for an organization that sued me, yet I didn't have any ill will for that, and so it was nice to kind of do come full circle on that particular item. And also represented on the other group, a BF-COG group, too. A couple of council members weren't available, and my understanding is 2020 is going to have more than an average availability for transportation type funds that, and a call has gone out to the jurisdictions in essentially the Tri-City area. And I know Mr. Worley was there, and if there's anything that Pasco can use, we'll be competing regionally for those. So there's some little extra potential money than we've seen in the past coming from that group. Any other reports? Hearing none, we also have the general fund operating statement. Unless somebody wants to go through that, we'll go to next item on the agenda. 7 hearings and council actions, nothing listed. So we go to 8 ordinances and resolutions not relating to hearings. And we go to item 8A, Federal Communication Commission 5G preemption. Item we talked about last week, and we have a variety of motions this evening. Ask Mr. White, any updates, significant changes since last week?
No, there aren't, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any questions of staff or motion? And Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll do these one at a time, and there's a number of them, so
exactly.
I'll just keep my light on. So, I move to adopt ordinance number 4462, amending PMC section 15.10.050, determination by city, and further authorize publication by summary only.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Barajas. Discussion on this item. And again, an item we talked about last week, fairly much, pretty much housekeeping items, but there were a variety of them, so we go through one at a time. Hearing none, I'll ask for your vote. All those in favor of ordinance 4462 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Maloney.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4463, amending ordinance number 4413, and amending PMC section 15.10.025, supplemental definitions and providing for corrections, and further authorize publication by summary only.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Serrano. Discussion on this item. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Maloney.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4464, amending ordinance number 4415, and amending PMC chapter 15.100, small cell tower deployment within the public right-of-way, and further authorize publication by summary only.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Milne. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And Mr. Maloney.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4465, amending ordinance number 4416, and amending PMC chapter 15.110, small cell tower deployment outside of the public right-of-way, and further authorize publication by summary only.
It's been moved, and is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Barajas. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of 4465 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And with that, a lot of motions, Mr. White, that'll help out on our record keeping and be ready for more 5G discussion, and you'll tell us when it comes, right?
They're coming.
They're coming. We appreciate it, and we're going to go on. Next item is related to an overpass easement, BNSF. I'm not sure if we've talked about this at length. Mr. Worley.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. We have not covered this previously, although we have covered the project numerous times, talking about different aspects of it. And as has been reported in the past, we are getting very close to completing the design and getting it out to bid. Some of the last things we are needing to wrap up is the acquisition of some right-of-way within the Burlington Northern Railroad right-of-way. And so all of the work for that has been done. We have needed to go out and get an appraisal from a certified appraiser for the easements we are asking for from the railroad. Not only do we get an appraisal, but then we turn it over to another appraiser and we get what's called a review appraisal. And so we review that as well. And then that information comes to the city for review to determine whether or not we agree with what is determined by the appraisals. And then we authorize the right-of-way consultant to move forward in making an offer to the railroad based on those appraised values. And in an effort to keep the project moving as quickly as possible, because we are trying to get the project out to bid to secure some funding that we have available for the project, we went ahead and authorized the appraisals, approved the appraisals, but the amount of the appraisals was slightly over the city manager's authority. So we are here tonight to answer any questions and hopefully get council's authorization to ratify the approval from the city manager for the appraisal reviews of the easements from the railroad for this project.
With that, then, questions or a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will make a motion first, and then I have some questions.
Great.
I move to approve resolution number 3916, authorizing the city manager to sign the BNSF easement and permit acquisition for the city of Pasco, Lewis Street Overpass project.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Martinez and Mr. Maloney.
Thank you. Mr. Worley, two things. When I just opened up the item on the agenda package, it showed that it was revised approximately at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Certainly not, so I'm not sure if maybe perhaps the city clerk can help me understand what changed, because I reviewed, of course, the original, not the...
Yes, I can. In the ordinance, the resolution, it had a strikeout in there, and so we replaced it with the final version.
Excellent, thank you. My only question, Mr. Worley, is I understand the need to purchase some amount of permanent easements as well as temporary easements for laydown, et cetera. At the end of this all, are we returning any existing easements? Is there going to be a process to that by relinquishing that land? Is there anything with that, or are we keeping control of all easements we currently have?
We are keeping control of the easements we do have. As you know, with the underpass that is there now, we are scheduled to put some utilities through that corridor, and so those easements will stay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? And it was what, about 300K?
Yep, slightly over.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution 3916 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Look forward to the manager signing that and moving on with the project. With that, section 8's done. No unfinished business under 9, so we go to item 10. 'Tis the time of year to talk about the ad valorem tax levy. And I think that's up for Mr. Zabel to introduce.
I'll introduce it, and then our finance director, Ms. Sigdell, will continue on. So as Mayor, as you indicated, this is actually the second year of our biennial budget. And council recall last year, as part of the biennial budget, you implemented a property tax increase that provided for financing, debt service financing for fire stations. And this year, as we've evaluated our revenue requirements going into 2020, and back up just 1 second, we started the budget process in earnest just recently with the capital improvement planning process, which council spent considerable time on and staff as well. and council approved that just a couple months ago. And so this is our first next formal phase in, and that's consideration ad valorem tax. While we adopted a biennium budget and we estimated additional taxes in that second year, we still formally need to establish the property tax for next year. So that's what tonight's about, and it also requires, will require a revenue hearing, I think scheduled for our next meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our finance director to walk us through our options tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Zabel, and evening, council and mayor. What we have in front of you today is an annual rite of passage for almost any local government, which is our property tax levy and general fund revenue hearing. It's also called ad valorem taxes, and under the state law, no local government can increase its property tax levy by more than 1% in any given year. So that is the hard and fast rule. And it goes a little bit further and says that any city with a population of 10,000 or more cannot increase its property taxes by more than its IPD or 1%. So 1% is your limit. If your IPD is 0.5%, then it's 0.5%. So you've got, as a city which has 75,000 people, we've got that further limitation as well. The graph that you see below here are some of the history of IPD. You'll see some years where it has dipped below 1%, which means that this year, which I believe was 2015 or 16, the city was only allowed to increase its property taxes by 0.251%. This is a really good graph to show how Pasco has grown, a graph representation of what you see on the streets every day. In 2006, which is not really that far back, our assessed valuation was a little bit less than $2 billion. For 2020, you're looking at a little bit more than $6 billion in assessed valuation. So a huge increase in that regard, not just in growth as in number of people, but also the value of the property itself as well. And bank capacity was a really big topic last year, and I just wanted to refresh your memories. It is essentially accrued, or it truly is banking your capacity. So essentially, whether you choose to take the 1% today or 2 years from now or 20 years from now, you are essentially taking that amount, banking it with the state, and basically letting it grow as if you were taking it, and you're just not withdrawing from your savings account. So you're essentially, when a local government says, I'm not going to take my 1% property tax that you are statutorily allowed to, you're not making a decision to forego it. You're making a decision to bank it for later use. You might never use it, but I doubt that. Usually what cities do and local governments do is, if they choose to bank it, is bank it for future uses, just like we did last year, where we took a lot of our bank capacity for fire stations, relocation of fire stations, and possibly some parts of the community center as well. This is a little bit of a dry PowerPoint presentation, or slide, but I'll try to walk you through this. Essentially, we have two options, and the first column here is some description. The second column is what we're doing this year. Option A, which is the third column, that does not include the 1%. So essentially, it's an option where we are not taking the 1% increase. And then option B, which is the fourth column, where we are taking that 1%. So the 2019 levy, which is the first row there, you will see $10.7 million of levy that we're currently applying. If you look at option A, that still stands. We're still allowed to take that levy. If you look at the second column, which is your IPD, you'll see about $106,000. So in the scheme of things, is not really a lot of money. 1% for a city this big, and if you really look at staff costs, CPI, it's really not enough to actually, if property taxes were the only revenue you had, obviously this 1% would not get you through the year. And state utility assessed valuations, those are BNSF, airports, things like that. They're a little bit more specialized. And then new construction for $387,000 that we're anticipating for this year. Franklin County Assessor's Office is the one that gives us numbers that all of this calculation is based on. And they've calculated that we have a little bit less than $200 million in new construction for this year. So total levy amount overall is for both option A and B are a little bit higher than $11 million. And if you look at the rates, the total tax rate will actually go down because our assessed valuation went up, because your assessed valuation is the denominator in this case. So you're looking at 1.828 per thousand assessed value. If you choose not to take the 1% and bank it for later, or 1.846 if you choose to take that 1%. Given the history of how Pasco has essentially used bank capacity and that we've balanced our 2020 budget and don't really anticipate a strong need for this 1%. Now, keeping in mind that it's not really that much money, we would recommend that you bank it. But of course, it is council's choice on how you want to go about it. Impact to our residents is really minimal. If you had a home that is $230,000 between option A and B, you are looking at $4 difference or $5 difference in a year, so fairly minimal. And this is a comparison data. We always like to compare ourselves to our neighbors. This is 2019 data taken from Benton County's booklet and also our information as well. With City of Richland, they have two different types of rates. One is your general rate, which is essentially operation of general fund functions like police, fire, administration, finance. And then there's also another rate, which is really your voted bonds. So if you are, let's say, have voted GO bond for your library, that would be added in there. Overall, the tax collection for Richland is close to $19 million. For Kennewick, $13 million, and for us, we're looking at $10.7 million. So a good comparison of our neighbors.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
When you say voted bonds, you're intending city bonds, not school bonds or that sort of thing?
No, just completely just city.
Okay, because I know that's one of the questions we often get is, why are the school bonds so high? And my answer is generally, go ask the school board, not me.
Yeah.
Not to be rude or facetious, but that's not our policy decision.
I will go to this slide here, skip over a little bit. This does give people a good idea of where property taxes go. So if you had $100 in property taxes, $39 of that is going to school district, 25% is going to state, or $25 is going to state, $19 is coming to us, and then $13 to county, and then $4 to some other agencies like the port. So there is, people really think of that $100 and think it might all go to the city or whichever agency they're talking to, but that money does get split in a lot of places. So if you're looking at, in terms of, for a layperson, what does property taxes really mean? We talk about it as per thousand assessed value and ad valorem, and so some of the language gets really confusing for people. So if you were to look at, for 2019, for a home that is assessed at $230,000, that does not mean it's an actual value, but it's just an assessed value. A City of Richland person might pay $560, Kennewick $458, and a Pasco home would pay about $446 in a year. This is also another, you saw the assessed valuation going up, and it makes sense that this rate is coming down. So in 2006, you're looking at 2.391 assessed value or rate per thousand assessed value. That essentially means for a home that is $230,000, it would cost $552 at that time. You're looking at, for option A, a rate of 1.828. Our rate has gone down almost every year with exception of last year when we did take that bank capacity. And this option B is not that far off. It's very similar. Do you have any questions on property taxes so far? We've talked about it quite a bit last year, so. So the other thing that we have to do, and this is a little bit early in the year, but we have done our biennial budgets, and we have balanced that budget, and we will be coming to you in the next month with some adjustments to that for 2019 and for 2020, wherever needed. And so I'll just try to get through this as quickly as possible, but also really focus on some of the more important funds or revenue sources. So this slide is the most important one among all of your revenues, because this is where almost 73% of all of the general fund's revenue comes from. And those are taxes. The major revenue, even within this group, is your sales tax, and then your property and your utility taxes. Some of the other taxes are admission tax, gambling taxes. Those are, small but still significant. And the little blue lines that you see represent how much they make up for the whole fund. So property tax, we just talked about. What we have budgeted for this year, you could get with both option A or option B. So both for 2020, we have $11 million that you could take even with option A or option B. Here, what we've budgeted for our biennial budget is a little bit less than $11 million. And that is okay because there are some cases where the taxes are not paid. So we account for that while we're budgeting. So what we've budgeted is right on track with what we presented you for both option A and B. This we talked about. Sales tax, we're doing very well in sales tax. One of the best things about sales tax is that it allows us to not increase our utility taxes and still provide really good service because we have very strong limitations in the property taxes like we talked about. The drawback of sales tax is its volatility in terms of economy. We are always in the local government talking about when the next recession is going to be and talking about fund balances and how we need to preserve them to make sure that we're not laying off people and there's not ups and downs. So we're always looking at those things. Overall, this is a really, to me, an eye-opening a table, I feel, for sales tax as well, just like where does your property tax go? When we pay 8.6% in Pasco, it doesn't all come to the city. So a large percentage of that, 6.5%, goes to state. Then city and county share the 1%. So we get 0.85% of the 8.6. Now there are some public safety and criminal justice tax that we get some shares of, but this is a table that is really good to keep in mind, as in, what are the percentages that we get when somebody spends money in Pasco. And where do they come from? So a little bit more than 50% comes from retail trade. And we also have large amounts of car dealerships, which are a blessing to the city. But again, volatile if there is a recession. So that's something that we are always mindful of and planning when we're thinking about our fund balances. Because if we have a sales tax base that might be more volatile than others, then we need to have a bigger reserve than maybe some other city that has a different kind of retail base. And utility taxes are taxes that are charged on all of the utility usage like garbage, water, sewer, natural gas. Our current rate for the city is 8.5%. You are usually allowed 6%, but another 2.5% was voted on top of it by citizens of Pasco, and that 2.5% goes to our overlay program, so it is not represented here. This is just the 6% that comes to the general fund. Fees and charges, a large part of fees and charges are essentially our administrative chargeback or our overhead. So we charge other funds like water and sewer, ambulance, and many number of other small funds for essentially the overhead cost of city manager's office, finance, HR, things like that. So that makes up about $3 million worth. And also our engineering services is very similar in that in nature. What our engineering department does is provide engineering services to the rest of the city. So they might be providing support for projects that some of the other departments have or some of the other funds have. And so they get to charge those funds and recover that cost, and that is what you're looking at. So there's some graphs of the administrative services charges and engineering services as well. And public safety services is another big part, and the two components that make up this service mostly are our ARF, which is Airport Rescue Fire services, and also our SRO services, our school resource officers. And intergovernmental is very much our state shared revenues, things like liquor board, excise taxes and profits, state and county PUD privilege taxes, any grants that we get. I do have some more details here of PUD privilege tax. There's always a push and pull in this direction in terms of how much the cities or the local governments will get versus how much state will. So this is an area that we're always keeping an eye out and making sure that that we can keep counting on this revenue. Grants, you'll see some drop in expected 2020 budget, and that is mostly accounting for our SAFER grant that will be tapering in 2020 and 2021, I believe. So that is the only impact. License and permits are mostly building permits. And one thing to keep in mind with building permit revenue is that there is an RCW that restricts where that revenue is used. And that we cannot use that revenue for anything else. So we do keep track of that, and that is something that might show up in general fund revenue or end fund balance, but cannot be used for any other use than for issuance of building permits. So overall, we're doing really well. Again, it's one of those things that will fluctuate with the economy, and we're thinking we're going to get at least 1.5 million this year. Same with business license. You'll see a little bit of tapering off. The 2019 numbers that 18 numbers that you see that are a little bit of an aberration are impact of us moving to our to BLS, which is the business license services with the state. And it had a two-part impact to that revenue in a good way. One is that we were able to capture a lot more businesses who had essentially no idea that we had a requirement, and due to ease of getting the business licenses and the fact that it clearly showed that you need to get a Pasco endorsement, and and it was easy to get. We were able to capture a lot of businesses there that we had not otherwise. But also, what they will do is try to get them in a in the same cycle as their state business license. So there was times when we got a little bit more revenue than we would have otherwise, but that would have been just for that first year. An animal license, which is pretty flat. Fines and forfeits, really small category, basically traffic and non-traffic fines. We have accounted for a small portion here for our red flex electronic cameras, but as we're seeing the first month's revenue, we're not really expecting really that much impact to what we've already budgeted for. So this is really the driest presentation I can give. It's hard to get through the revenues. I feel like you're repeating yourself. And some of the other revenue sources are rents and bond proceeds that you'll see in 2019, which we're still going forward in, and you'll be hearing about it here soon, and some of the transfer-ins for services that are provided by general fund, like our boulevard maintenance fund that gives us some of the money. So do you have any questions?
I just put in perspective. So in past years, usually we talk about the one leg of the school being just the property tax portion, but I think you put it, you shared all the legs of the stool that are the taxes in relation to the one part. So our specific task is, and essentially I'm hearing it is whether or not to go option A or option B. Option A is no tax increase, not even take the 1%, and then option B, and then it also sounds like it would be automatically preserved if a future council wanted to do it, and that's just but for the property tax portion.
That is correct. And essentially, you know, depending on how you frame the tax increase, it is a tax rate decrease regardless.
Well, and that was going to be my follow-up question, and I think the question I get, or I've been seeing online before in social media too, is my home was worth, and I'm going to pick a number, this isn't an actual number, was worth $200,000 this year. It's $230,000 a year. That's a 15% increase. Aren't my property taxes going to go up 15%? And the answer is no. And if that home value, if everybody's went up 15%, what if we chose option A with 0%? How much would their actual taxes increase?
1%.
What
because
if we didn't take the 1%?
Oh, it would be the same. For us, the pie cannot increase more than 1%.
So their rate would go down a commensurate amount so that they would still be out the same amount as last year, at least for the Pasco portion.
That is correct.
Okay. So, and one can say that about 8 different ways, but just because home values went up significantly in the past year does not mean their property taxes go up.
That is correct.
But
that same rate.
Same rate.
Yes.
That said, if somebody's house goes up much more than their neighbors, then it is possible for them to go up 1%, but then somebody else is going to have to go down at the same rate.
That is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to qualify that. And this is discussion tonight. Typically we do actions, but this is being presented tonight, and the expectation is that we would go forward or an indication of which way we're going, or is that then the follow-on that we do have a hearing or that sort of thing, Mr. Zabel?
Yes, our next step will be a hearing, and our recommendation will remain the same. Not take the 1%, just bank that for future.
And with that, discussions or questions, Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Sigdal, for a great presentation. I think lots of detail, and I certainly appreciate that. But I think because of that, now you have raised some questions for me that have no saliency with the decision that we have for us, but it does have opened up a couple questions out of curiosity, if you will indulge me.
Absolutely.
So my question is, mentioning the biennium and, the decision we made last year to move towards that model of budgeting. My curiosity is for cities that adopt that, how do they prepare, or how do we prepare for an economic downturn. Let's say it happens at the beginning of the biennium,
Yeah.
and we have a whole another year of budgeting that now what's the response, or how would we see that come to us?
So even during a biennial budgeting process, we do have a requirement by NRCW that we do a biennium adjustment. And so if you were having an unexpected economic downturn that would impact the city significantly, then you would address that during that adjustment process. So essentially, you instead of making just small changes and accounting for things that were either overlooked or unexpected, you would go back and look at all of the factors and make any necessary adjustments during that process.
If I could just add on to that, aside from that council's formal action to change that budget through that process, this is something that staff monitors on a continuous basis. So if we started to see revenues tapering off, we would be making adjustments administratively and then alerting council to what adjustments we made to keep our expenditures in check with revenues.
Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. This does get a lot easier the more you've gone through this, and having scrubbed through it very, very hard the first time, it is much easier to absorb this information. So I have one question, one comment. So my question is, I understand we'll be going through further reviews on this going forward, but approximately how much of an adjustment are you expecting to make for the 2020 estimate for revenues?
We are actually just starting that process, and as I've made some comments on the reports that council gets, there is some concern over overtime in fire and police, so we're looking through that. But we don't really expect any increase in expenses that wouldn't be covered by increase in revenues.
My apologies if I spoke unclearly. I just meant for the revenue side of things that we're discussing tonight.
Oh, just for revenue?
Yes, thank you.
We're thinking about $1 million or more than what we had anticipated.
Okay, thank you. I tried to kind of add it up as I went, and that was not doing me well. So I thought
it's about 1.2 million, but don't quote me on that.
Don't hold you to that.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I was going to say is when I popped this open, I skimmed very quickly to the bottom line of are we going to be banking the capacity, and I was glad to see staff is recommending that. I think that's the prudent decision, and I'm very much supportive of us banking that capacity now that I think we very prudently took an action to fund the fire stations based on using our previous bank capacity, and I think it's time to start replenishing that. So I'm very glad to see staff is recommending that, and I'm very supportive of that. Thank you.
Other questions or discussion? I would just follow up on that point too, and since with this council, we did the significant change last year, and in previous councils, you make it sound as if it's an automatic on the banked capacity. However, previous councils went ahead and maybe wasn't required, but still affirmatively made a statement that they were banking the capacity with the staff's recommendations. Would that be also true?
Yes, and we have worked, especially with our last year's experience with some of the bank capacity issues and reinstatement of that, we have worked diligently to make sure that we have good templates for ordinance for both our property taxes and our banking capacity ordinance as well.
And so we're going to get to a point where we do public comment and all that sort of stuff, but when staff present an actual motion to us, we'll see language to that effect.
Yes, you will.
Okay. Other questions or discussion? And once again, timeline too, I think you're getting an affirmative nods from council. That's the direction to go, but we also need to weigh in with the public on this in some form. And time-wise, is that something, or what's our steps from here for action?
So we would like to have a public hearing scheduled for next week.
Okay.
And if you could take action during that week, we'd really appreciate it.
So we can do a public hearing and then take action, even though that would be potentially a workshop meeting next week?
We would conduct part of that as a special meeting.
Special meeting, okay, that's timing wise. So expectation then we'll move forward on that. We'll advertise it as a public hearing, and then also potentially council could take action next week.
That is correct.
Okay.
If you could indulge me just a little bit more, You all have the adopted capital improvement plan at your desk. I also wanted to introduce something that our GIS staff, Deshaun Robbins, and Finance Department staff, Shar Sandlin, worked really hard on. And this is a dashboard of the CIP that is in front of you. So we're hoping that rather than having to go through pages of projects, that you'd be able to select what you're interested in. Like, for example, so this is a dashboard of all of the projects, so it shows you totals and how many projects there are, and a list of all of the projects here. So if I was only interested in fire projects, let's say, I could just make that selection and it would come back with a fire project. And if I just clicked on Fire Station 83 replacement, it would show me that in the map and also give me further details on the side here, depending on the size of your screen. So we hope that people will use it. It is on our website and is a much better way of navigating through what is planned for the city. So I just wanted to show you that, and we have that out live in our website as well.
And so when we discuss it in council meeting, a test for us is if we can bring it up in our Chrome on our iPads and follow along with what's going on the screen.
Yes.
Okay. We'll endeavor to do that then.
This is just an FYI, but yes, we would appreciate you testing it out.
Okay. Mr. Alvarado.
Yeah, to that end, would we can we get a link to that?
Yes, we will send you all the link.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Ad valorem, and then a little tip on a future capital improvement plan too. With that, look forward to that next week. Thank you for the presentation on that, and we'll go on with the agenda. We go on to the next item related to a bid award for irrigation pump station project. I believe we have talked about. It's a big ticket item though. Mr. Worley.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, tonight we are looking to possibly award the bid for the irrigation pump station. As you may recall, the irrigation pump station is part of the processed water reuse facility. As you can see on the photo in the screen, the new location is shown just outside of the fenced-in area. I think many of you had a tour of the reuse facility and have seen how large it can be. The purpose of the IPS is to pump partially treated wastewater from the PWRF to the city-owned farm fields for final treatment as it gets used by the plants and soaks into the ground. The existing IPS has exceeded its life cycle, and it's currently operating beyond its intended capacity, and so it doesn't reliably meet the current needs of the reuse facility. The design of the IPS was done by Pace Engineers, the same group that has given presentations in the past and that has developed our facility plan for the improvements that are proposed for that. And as part of that process, they identified the IPS as one of the most needed projects at the reuse facility. And in staff's opinion, it's the highest priority project at the PWRF right now. We had a bid opening on August 8th. We received 5 bids. Apollo Incorporated was the lowest bidder. We've reviewed the bid submittals and we found no exceptions or irregularities, and staff would recommend approval of the bid award to Apollo. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to award the PWRF irrigation pump station project to Apollo Inc. and the amount of $8,048,615.76, and further authorize the city manager to execute the contract documents.
I second.
Moved and seconded by Mr. Alvarado. Discussion. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Worley, just one question on this. I see that we estimated a little low on this one, and obviously that happens. Are we seeing that for the processed water reuse facility, is this at all trending in this direction?
The previous bids that we got, I believe, were below the engineer's estimate. So this one was a little bit different in that it included a building and some pipe work. And sometimes when you mix those in the same bid, sometimes the estimates can vary quite a bit based on the market conditions and the availability of different types of contractors.
Okay, so we're still in the ballpark. It's just
Weird.
sometimes we miss high, sometimes we miss low.
We are definitely within the ballpark.
Thank you.
Other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the irrigation pump station project signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Besides thanking staff on this one, also want to thank the processors too for coming together to do that Rev 2, version 2. It's kind of hard to believe that it's been that many years since the thing was new, but still it's a going concern, worthy of reinvestment. I think we all appreciate that. So thanks to the processors, and great to add value to products here in Pasco. Send them out in bags instead of sending them out not in bags in the back of trucks. That said, we're going to go to item C, Tourism Promotion Area 2020 budget presented last year. Any updates since last week, Mr. Zabel?
I don't know that we could add to what was presented last week.
Yeah.
That was a very thorough presentation.
Okay. With that, then questions or a motion, Mr. Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the 2020 marketing plan and operating budget for the tourism promotion area in the amount of $1,614,000 and let me try that again. $1,614,181.
Perfect. It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Martinez. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, all those in favor of the TPA budget say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. With that, we go to section 11, miscellaneous discussion. Mr. Zabel.
Well, I had a few things this evening, Your Honor. So ACNS reminds us we have a Pasco Public Facilities Board meeting tomorrow. So that's going to be a big meeting. And we'll also have in the community service room, a open house where we'll have the consultant there as well from 6 to 8 p.m. to discuss the proposed aquatics facility. So we anticipate a good public turnout and a good discussion at the PFD meeting. So, secondly, this week, Channel 191 will go to all high def. So we announced that, I think, previously, but that's going to be a significant change. And people will actually be able to see our PowerPoints a little bit better, maybe, and things like that. So in higher definition. And then some really good news this week. And we don't have the final award, but I'd ask Richa and her staff to go to the front. But so we have submitted for the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Award, and we're in receipt of that award as of late last week. So could you pass that down? And the award recognizes the very highest quality budget documents from among the state and local governments across this country as well as Canada. And to be considered for the award, budgets must be prepared in a manner that reflects the guidelines established by the National Advisory Council on State and Local Budgeting, as well as the GFOA's best practices in budget. And documents submitted are reviewed by senior financial members of the GFOA professional staff. And I can tell you from past experience in this one, those are very thorough reviews. And those folks have a lot of experience in public sector budgeting. This is the city's first Distinguished Budget Award. As I mentioned, we have received GFOA recognition in the past for our annual reports. But you can see on the certificate itself, GFOA recognized the Distinguished Budget Award as the highest award in governmental budgeting. So very, very impressive, I think, milestone for the city. City's worked continuously over the past few years to improve its budget document, both in terms of comprehensiveness, readability, transparency, and organization of it. And like I mentioned, the actual award won't be here for a few more weeks, but want to recognize Richa and her staff. This budget is possible primarily because of the three of them right there. And there are a lot of other folks in the organization that work on the budget. Even I work on the budget a little bit. So. But those are the ones that made this budget award-winning document. So Richa, I want to say a few words, and staff. So.
And I'm going to guess you did know about this, or you got warned this was coming. This is not totally a surprise, but language of distinguished budget work from this group is the highest praise, it sounds like.
Yes, we've been working really hard. And in fact, we're really pleased that we got this award. It feels like a culmination of what we've been working on for last few years, but also a really good stepping stone for our biennial budget as well. Now that we know what the standards are, another great thing is that we also get feedback and reviews, so we know the areas that we need to improve and the areas that we're already really strong in. I would really like to thank all of Finance Department, but also the rest of the city staff. If they didn't help us to get the numbers together, then we would be scrambling in the end, and we would not be able to produce a budget document that would actually win any award. So we would like to thank everybody, but especially the Finance Department staff who worked very hard, very long hours for this document. It is definitely not easy one to go after, so I want to thank them.
And your two colleagues here this evening?
Yes, Darcy Buckley and Griselda Garcia, our lead accountants. And really a welcome to all the work.
Long rotation, but it comes back to you.
Thank you.
So you might have seen this before. Good job.
Thank you.
Want to do a quick picture? Want to do the council on this one?
Sure.
Okay. You want to go ahead?
We'll do the same thing.
Same thing.
I'll go down. How about you guys stay up there and we'll do two deep this way. Does that sound okay?
We'll come in together.
You can see over these people.
I mean, some of us can see over some. Some of us can see over some of them.
So
Good job, Mr. Zabel, sliding in another opportunity for a round of applause.
that's all I had for this evening, except to mention that our finance director did know about the award because she put it in the frame.
With that, miscellaneous discussion by council. Mr. Maloney?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to echo just one time a little bit louder. One thing Mr. Zabel mentioned is that tomorrow the Public Facility District Board is meeting at 2:30 here in council chambers, and then there is an open house, and this is important to get the feedback from the community on what sort of aquatics facility the city of Pasco may want to build. So that's really going to be a key. It's all about what this community wants and whether the community is going to be willing to support a project. And open houses like tomorrow are the way that the community gets its voice heard the loudest and the clearest. So I hope that that many members will come, the community will come and speak on behalf of what they want to see this community do. And the other thing I was going to mention is on the budget. You know, I've even though I've only been on city council for not quite 2 years, I've been paying attention a little while longer than that and serving on the Pasco PFD board before that. And you know, I've seen some even at that level, that little microcosm of what a budget looks like for an organization. The quality really has just improved dramatically, and it is noticeable even in the short time I've been paying attention how impactful the finance department has made their efforts. And it's gratifying to see something like this and the award coming out on this. It's just icing on the cake. It really is fantastic to see this, and this is well applauded. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Any other discussion? Hearing none, is there a need for an executive session?
Not this evening.
Oh, we love that answer, so we'll go to 13. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.